everybody, and welcome to the Concession Stand here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and this is the serious review of the latest Star Wars property, which is available on Disney Plus, the science fiction adventure TV show Skeleton Crew. And this show stars Jude Law, as it tells the story of a coming of age story about four children who make a discovery on their home planet, get lost in the galaxy, and go on an adventure to get back home. This is a show that I was highly anticipated. It premiered in December, and I was super excited for this show, even though the Star Wars property, the TV shows as of late, even movies, have not delivered. They have not been on the level in a franchise that arguably started the geek phenomenon, that started this nerd culture that we are in, to be letting us down time after time, with the Acolyte and Ahsoka and going back to film with Rise of Skywalker, The Last Jedi, and, so on and so forth. Solo, they've been very divisive as per, where it all started. Star Wars A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, that space opera that was given to us in the late 70s into the 80s. And, the prequels were the prequels. They're starting to get appreciated now as time has aged it a little better and people have a greater appreciation for them, at least more so than they did when they came out. But these new shows, even Obi-Wan Kenobi, that didn't land. Nothing landed on Disney Plus. Andor aside, Andor was a good show, but it wasn't Star Warsy. You didn't have X-Wings and Jedis and, the Force being used on that show, but it was based in Star Wars. But it was a good show. The Mandalorian, good show. The last season, it kind of tapered off a little bit, even though it was decent. Boba Fett didn't get there with me. And so when this show was announced, and they announced that it was going to be kind of a throwback, not film, but series that kind of touches in on 80s nostalgia back in the Ambrum era of film, and that is the Steven Spielberg produced movies, like The Goonies, and stuff like that, Stand By Me, movies like that. And you mix it up with Star Wars, you got a really good combination. And so diving into this show, I was super excited. This is coming from the mind of John Watts, who brought us arguably the three best Spider-Man. Well, it ain't arguably. I'm sorry. There's no debating that. I will not sit there and debate the last three Spider-Man films that star Tom Holland. Yes, those were epic and great. And John Watts he directed all three of those films. Really good director, really has an eye for this type of adventure and nostalgic feel. And so diving into this show, I was very optimistic, very hopeful, and I'm proud to announce that finally Star Wars is back. This was the most Star Warsy show, property, whatever you want to describe it as we've since I don't know, I guess Force Awakens. I guess I could say Force Awakens because Force Awakens was basically a carbon copy of A New Hope. So it felt like an old 80s Star Wars type property. It's sad that a lot of people didn't watch this show. I don't know, because a lot of people don't have Disney Plus, or they've been burnt by the Disney Plus shows, which I can completely understand. But I can honestly say that Skeleton Crew is the best Star Wars property I've seen in years. It felt Star Wars. It felt nostalgia. I felt like a little kid, watching this show. And I think that's what's going to make this show special going forward when people start discovering it and thinking on it. This show, if you're a kid, is something you can relate to. If you're a grown adult like me, you think back on when you was a kid and watching Star Wars and wishing and hoping and praying you can go on an adventure like that. You can live vicariously through these kids on this show. And every kid here, the character of Wim, oh my God, what's her name? Finn, KB, and Neil. Those four characters were excellent. You know somebody, or you knew somebody as a child who had the personality of one, if not all four, of these kids. If you didn't have one of them yourself, it is so relatable, and the friendship that develops between these four kids throughout this 8-episode run is so well earned and excellently performed by these children. I mean, excellently. What I enjoyed about the kids' performance more than anything is that they start off as kids, and by the end of episode 8, they are still kids. You ever watch a show or a movie that has a child, a character or actor playing that child character or whatever, and it don't feel kiddie. It feels like it is adult. They give them or her adult dialogue or actions or whatever the case may be, and they come of age. They grow up before our eyes in this little 2-hour movie, and it's just not believable. You don't buy it, and it kind of diminishes the film or the show that you're watching. Not here. These kids are kids, and they stayed true to that throughout the show, and I appreciated it for that. These kids had to go through some real adult problems, throughout this show, and they had to come at it as a child. Nobody came up with this grandioso plan that a 40-year-old is the only one who can go, figure it out because the 40-year-old has life experience. No, they had to figure it out from the perspective of a 12-year-old, and it worked. It actually worked, and it fit the show. The adults here, the only adult I really enjoyed here throughout the show was Jude Law, even though he was the main star of the show. I loved his character, and he's basically Long John Silver. If you read Treasure Island, that's basically what this show is. It ain't no basically. It's Treasure Island in Star Wars. It's the exact same story with the exception of the end. Other than that, it's the exact same story. But that takes nothing away from it. That actually added to the joy of it all, because I remember that story. I actually read that at school because I had to. I wasn't a big reader growing up, unless it was comic books, but I did read that at school, and I pretty much knew where this story was going, but I was still intrigued throughout. And Jude Law did an excellent job because he had to act with these kids and come off as their friend, or come off as an enemy, come off as vicious, and come off as sweet, and had to go through all ranges of emotion and personalities with these children throughout the show. And it was, once again, well done. I mean, it's Jude Law. Jude Law is one of the, in my humble opinion, one of the most underrated actors in Hollywood. The dude is awesome. And no matter what he's in, the dude has been awesome from the years. So it was cool to see him in a Star Wars show. The other adults, the parents here, that's the biggest flaw I have in this show is the parents. I could not stand the parents. And they were kind of, it's not the actors' fault. They were kind of underwritten. They really didn't have much to do. At certain points you're like, well, why are they even in the show? And because they serve no purpose to the story. They really didn't. And it was weird because they pop up every now and then with a little subplot, but it was pointless to the main through line because it didn't do anything. You know what I'm saying? It was pointless. But other than that, I really had no flaws. Really had no flaws until the end. The end kind of left me. I don't know. It's a weird place. I'm in a weird place with it because it wasn't anticlimactic. It actually was a awesome, awesome climax to this story in episode 8. A lot of action, a lot of drama, a lot of emotion, but I felt like something was left behind. I still have questions to be answered. You know what I'm saying? It was really, I don't know, man. I really don't know how to describe it, but it feels anticlimactic, but it really wasn't anticlimactic. I don't know. I'm fighting this fight within myself, but maybe I'm fighting the losing battle. Maybe at the end of the day, it was just anticlimactic. Even though it was a lot of action, exciting action, and some exciting little showdowns that happened, but I was expecting more, and I did not get what I was looking for. But that's just my personal taste. You may watch it and feel like, oh, I was completely satisfied, Kevin, and I wouldn't fight you on it. I like, well, I can see why you would be. It was just, for me, I wanted to see a little more, and especially a couple of subplots that were teased throughout the 8 episodes didn't really get a conclusion to. And I don't know if we're going to get a season 2 or not. They didn't announce anything, but if this is it, I mean, I'm kind of like, okay. So that's that. I guess I got to live with it. But it's cool. I did enjoy the show. I think it's Lucasfilm and Disney Plus best Disney Plus show since the Mandalorian. Will I put it up there past the Mandalorian? Well, they're two different shows, and the Mandalorian is more of an adult oriented show, if that makes any sense. I wouldn't compare these two, other than the fact that they're a Star Wars property, and other than the fact that they are linked in a way because these two shows take place at the same time, at least in the same timeline, as opposed of Ahsoka that takes place years after or before. I don't even know. It's all over the place, and other shows that they do that takes place before the rebellion, and this one is after Return of the Jedi, and this one is before Empire Sky. I'm like, okay, we're going all over the place. Let's stick to a timeline here. But these two shows, Mandalorian and Skeleton Crew, are running parallel with one another. As a matter of fact, one of the characters, one of the pirates on this show, comes from the Mandalorian. So that's the big crossover, if you will. I highly recommend Star Wars Skeleton Crew, which is currently on Disney Plus, and I give it a letter grade of a B. I think it's a really, really good show. Really good show. I can see where a lot of people will be hesitant to watch. I do. And I'm giving this little editorial because I talked to somebody because we watched all the shows, and when it came time to watch Skeleton Crew, they were like, nah, I can't do it. They were just burnt out and hurt and tired of being disappointed. And if you are in that camp, I would strongly recommend you give this show a chance. Really good show, good acting. It's funny. It's emotional. It has some really good action in it. Special effects here looks, I mean, some of the special effects in this show looks better than the movies. It looked that good. Yes, I highly, highly, highly recommend it. And if you are a Star Wars fan, check this out. If you're a Goonies fan from back in the day, check it out. This is prime real estate for all of you 80s nostalgia nutheads like me. And so check it out if you haven't. Star Wars Skeleton Crew is currently on Disney Plus, all 8 episodes. I would like to know, have you checked out Skeleton Crew? How did you like it? Are you planning on checking it out? What's the hold up? Let me know. Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also search for the show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network. Also, don't forget about YouTube, ladies and gentlemen. Subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel and like this video if you don't mind. Also, don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the Concession Stand here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me for this review of Star Wars Skeleton Crew. Want you all to know that I love you, continue to love everyone, and until we speak again, you all be blessed.